Have you ever been told your progesterone is low, but no one mentioned that the timing of your test could completely change the result? Most women get their progesterone tested at the wrong time and end up chasing results that were never accurate to begin with. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly when to test your progesterone, how to know if your results are actually reliable, and what those numbers really mean for fertility, cycle health, and PCOS. I'm Mariah, and I help women understand their hormones so they can finally get answers, not more confusion. If you've ever been told everything looks normal, but you know something's off, then this video is for you. If you're on a journey to balance your hormones naturally, make sure to subscribe. I share new videos every week to help you take back control of your health with real, practical tools that work. Before we talk about when to test progesterone, let's talk about why it matters so much in the first place. Progesterone is the hormone your body produces after ovulation, and it's responsible for preparing your uterine lining for implantation, keeping your mood and sleep stable, and balancing the effects of estrogen and supporting early pregnancy. In short, progesterone literally holds your cycle and early pregnancy together. Here's the key part that most people miss. Progesterone only rises after you've ovulated. It's made by a tiny temporary gland called the corpus luteum, which forms from the follicle that just released your egg. Think of it like a thermostat. It only switches on once ovulation flips the switch. So if ovulation doesn't happen, that thermostat stays off and progesterone stays low. Once ovulation does occur and progesterone rises, your body has two possible paths. If the egg isn't fertilized, the corpus luteum breaks down and progesterone drops. Cue your next period. But if that egg is fertilized, then progesterone keeps climbing to maintain the uterine lining and to prevent early shedding. During early pregnancy, that rise is crucial. The corpus luteum remains the main source of progesterone for the first several weeks of pregnancy, protecting the embryo and supporting implantation. But between 8 and 12 weeks of pregnancy, the placenta gradually takes over progesterone production, and this transition typically is completed around week 10. If progesterone drops too soon before the placenta takes over, the uterine lining can break down prematurely, and that's one reason early miscarriages sometimes occur. And that's why timing matters so much. Not only when you're testing progesterone, but also when your body needs it most. To understand when to test, you first need to know what's happening in your cycle. There are two main phases. The follicular phase is the first half of your cycle, from day 1 of your period up until ovulation. This is when estrogen dominates, helping your uterine lining rebuild and supporting follicle growth. The luteal phase is the second half of your cycle, which starts after ovulation and lasts up until your period begins. This is progesterone's time to shine. It holds the uterine lining in place and prepares your body for a possible pregnancy. Ovulation is the bridge between the two, the turning point when your body shifts from estrogen-dominant growth to progesterone-led stability. In a typical textbook 28-day cycle, ovulation happens on day 14 and luteal phase lasts about 14 days. But here's the thing. Textbook cycles are extremely rare. In real life, healthy cycles can range anywhere from 21 to 35 days, and that variation changes everything when it comes to figuring out when to test progesterone. If your cycle is 30 days long, you likely ovulate closer to day 16, not day 14. So if you go for a day 21 progesterone test, you're actually testing only 5 days after ovulation, or possibly even before if your cycle runs a little late that month. And here's the problem. Progesterone doesn't surge instantly after ovulation. It builds gradually. If you test too soon, your levels will appear low when in reality, your body just hasn't had the chance to make enough yet. This is one of the most common reasons women are told they have low progesterone when their hormone levels and their fertility are actually perfectly normal. You've probably heard of the day 21 progesterone test. It's the standard number that gets thrown around by doctors, labs, and Google searches. And that number comes from the old research based on a 28-day cycle where ovulation occurs on day 14. So day 21 would be exactly 7 days after. But like I said, most women don't have a textbook 28-day cycle. So if your cycles are shorter or longer, 21 isn't even 7 days after ovulation, and that can completely change your results. So instead of testing on a fixed day like day 21, the real rule is this. Test 7 days after ovulation, not day 21, not mid-cycle, but 7 days after ovulation, as that is the sweet spot when progesterone should be at its peak. Testing on the wrong day doesn't just give you inaccurate numbers. It can lead to unnecessary worry, misdiagnosis, or even treatments that you don't actually need. Okay, so we've covered why timing matters, but how do you actually know when ovulation happened? There are a few key ways to track it, and combining them gives you the most accurate results. So let's break this down. Basal body temperature tracking, also known as BBT, is your resting temperature taken first thing in the morning before you get out of bed. After ovulation, progesterone rises, and because it's a thermogenic hormone, your body temperature slightly increases, usually by 0.3 to 0.5 of a degree. That temperature shift typically appears 1 to 2 days after ovulation, confirming that it's already happened. So BBT doesn't predict ovulation, it confirms it. It's your body's way of saying, yep, we did it. To get accurate readings, use a BBT thermometer that measures to 2 decimal places and take it around the same time each morning if you can, because consistency is key when it comes to taking your temperature. And if you're someone who forgets or hates taking your temperature manually, wearables like the Oura Ring can actually be a game changer. It tracks your resting temperature overnight and identifies those subtle shifts that align with ovulation, without you having to do it manually. And just remember, while it's amazing for spotting trends, it's best used alongside your other tracking methods, not as your only confirmation. Now, let's talk about LH test strips, also known as ovulation predictor kits. These measure your luteinizing hormone, the signal that triggers ovulation. When you get a positive LH test, ovulation is likely to occur within the next 24 to 36 hours. So LH strips help you predict ovulation, which is perfect for timing your progesterone test 7 days later. But here's the catch. For women with PCOS or thyroid conditions like Hashimoto's, these tests can be misleading. You might actually see multiple LH surges without actually releasing an egg, and that's what we call an anovulatory cycle. This happens because both PCOS and thyroid dysfunction can disrupt the communication between your brain and ovaries, the very signals that control when ovulation happens. So your LH might spike at the wrong time, stay elevated too long, or pulse unpredictably, which makes the timing tricky. And that's why deeper hormone testing can be so helpful. Looking at the thyroid stimulating hormone, free T3, free T4, prolactin, fasting insulin, and androgens can help to reveal why your cycles look inconsistent and whether ovulation is truly happening. And once those imbalances are addressed, the LH test strips and cycle tracking become far more reliable, and your progesterone results will finally start to make a little more sense. And then we have cervical mucus changes, and this one to track is completely free and surprisingly accurate once you know what to look for. So around ovulation, cervical mucus becomes clear, stretchy, and slippery, kind of like raw egg whites. That's your body's way of saying, hey, we're getting close to that fertile window. And then after ovulation, it becomes thicker and more sticky again, signaling that the fertile window has now closed. And finally, cycle tracking apps like Clue, Flow, or Natural Cycles can be a great way to visualize everything together. They help you to see patterns over time, how your LH test strips, temperature shifts, and mucus changes line up over time. Just remember, most apps predict ovulation based on averages, not your unique biology, so use them as a guide. So the best approach to track ovulation and to figure out the right time to test progesterone is to combine these methods rather than just relying on one. Use LH test strips to predict ovulation, use BBT temperature tracking to confirm it actually happened, watch for your cervical mucus for extra clues, and then use the app to tie it all together to spot trends. When all these signs come together, your LH surge, egg white mucus, temperature rise, and app data showing the same window, that's strong confirmation that ovulation occurred. From there, simply count 7 days forward to find your perfect progesterone testing window. Now that you know when to test, let's talk about what those numbers actually mean. In a natural cycle, a healthy luteal phase progesterone level is anything above 10 nanograms per milliliter, enough to support a normal cycle and confirm ovulation. Levels above 15 nanograms per milliliter tend to be more optimal and are linked to better pregnancy outcomes and stronger ovulations. And then anything above 5 means your ovulation did occur, but might not have been as strong as it could be. And for fertility support cycles, using ovulation medications or supplements, the goal is usually to have anywhere from 15 to 20 nanograms per milliliter or higher during the mid-luteal phase. And once pregnancy occurs, we want progesterone to stay strong, ideally no lower than 30 nanograms per milliliter through the first trimester. And that helps maintain the uterine lining and reduces the risk of early loss before the placenta can take over around week 10. And if your results come back a little borderline or low, like 8 or 9 nanograms per milliliter, It doesn't always mean your progesterone is low. It could be a timing issue or potentially just weaker ovulation that month. And if that's the case, just retest the next cycle and make sure your blood draw is exactly 7 days after ovulation. Even with perfect timing, a few things can still throw off your results. Testing too early or too late can make your numbers look lower than they are. Sometimes it's not about the test. It's about when ovulation happened. If it was early or delayed, your progesterone peak shifts with it. Whereas stress or illness can also suppress ovulation or shorten the luteal phase, since your body prioritizes recovery over reproduction. Thyroid issues and insulin resistance can interfere with ovulation quality and progesterone production too. And certain supplements or medications, like fertility drugs, hormonal birth control, or progesterone creams, can all influence the results as well. That's why I recommend tracking your cycle for at least 2 to 3 months before drawing conclusions. One off month doesn't define your hormones. Your patterns over time tell the real story. So, what if your results are genuinely low, even with correct timing? Low progesterone isn't always about not having enough. It's about why your body isn't making enough. Sometimes it's because ovulation didn't happen, such as an anovulatory cycle. No egg means no corpus luteum and no progesterone production. Other times, maybe ovulation did occur, but the follicle that released your egg wasn't healthy enough to make sufficient progesterone afterwards. That can lead to a short luteal phase, spotting, PMS, or difficulty maintaining early pregnancy in some cases. A weak or poorly timed L8 surge can also cause late or inefficient ovulation, reducing progesterone output. Chronic stress plays a big role too. When cortisol stays high, your body prioritizes survival over reproduction. This cortisol steal can divert resources from progesterone production. And finally, inflammation, thyroid imbalances, or insulin resistance can disrupt the brain-ovary communication that regulates progesterone. So before jumping straight to supplements, it's important to ask why your levels are low. Addressing the root cause, whether that's stress, thyroid health, inflammation, or ovulation quality, all helps your body make progesterone naturally. And if you want to learn how to naturally support your progesterone levels, stay tuned for my next video, which dives into the exact diet, lifestyle, and supplement strategies that can help your body make more progesterone on its own. And if you're on a journey to balance your hormones or boost your fertility naturally, don't forget to download my free PCOS pregnancy prep guide. It's linked in the description box below. It walks you through key lab tests, nutrition foundations, and how to start connecting the dots in your own cycle. And remember, your body is always communicating with you. Once you learn how to read those signals, everything starts to make so much more sense. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.